So I'm from England originally. I moved from England to California lots of years ago, well north of 20 years ago. And I met my wife there, Mimi. And when our first son was born, she said, "Let's go to the Midwest." I said, "What's the Midwest?" As it turned out, she'd read an article in the San Francisco Chronicle that said that Fort Wayne, amongst a few other cities, was in the top 10 places to raise a child in the US. So that's why we came to Fort Wayne. And so we moved when our son was 9 months old. He's 18, nearly 19 now. And we've really enjoyed Fort Wayne. It's been great. I like the combination of large and small. I like the open space. Our property here is surrounded by trees, and it's been really beautiful. I really enjoy the community, and I'm really grateful to be here. So our inspiration was based on our own experience between Mimi and I recording in different studios. My time recording in the UK, as well as going into a few studios in Italy and California, a little bit around the Midwest. And we rarely came across, if ever came across, studios where there was a lot of light, where we felt the place was inspirational to be. Often studios are sort of retrofitted into some concrete building somewhere, and from the perspective of the musician, spending such long periods of time in the studio became really draining and really challenging. And so we specifically set out to build a place where natural light and use of natural materials, where I could be surrounded by nature. We've got trees all around, and some open space so that I can get out and breathe. That's what we set about creating, simply because we really believe in music, in the significance of music, in the significance of the arts themselves in general. So not just music, painting and etc., sculptures, and wanted to find a way to create a community, a catalyst for the community to be able to grow and evolve, and see how we can enrich communities with bringing more music to it. And so the Fort Wayne community, because of all of the amazing things that the Sweetwater have done, we've got a lot of artists here, we've got a tremendous amount of talent, and we wanted to contribute to that. That's why we built the studio. So we call it Silverbirch because in Celtic mythology, the silver birch tree represents new beginnings. It's a new beginning for us. We like to think that with the approach we're using, that we can foster some new beginnings for some new music, and help grow and evolve what we can accomplish as a city and as a community. So I started playing the guitar when I was 10, and I was fascinated, always, even from that young age, I was fascinated by blues. I loved blues. I don't know what it was about it. What I'd learned over time was, what I love about it is the way that the form may be simple, even the musical content may be simple, but the dynamic between the musicians is subtle, and it's not always simple. When it's done well and you have a group of musicians together and that there's a story being told, I find that organic experience really powerful. And really I've been pursuing that ever since, not just within the genre of blues. I'm a big fan of lots of different genres of music, but specifically epic music. You might call it progressive rock, you might call it alternative, whatever you want to call it. I love music that takes me on a journey, and so I write music that reflects that. So I've been working on a piece for a few years now that I've been obsessing over, that's 21 minutes long, and it's about the journey of enlightenment, and it's got several different movements, and I've been working on it with Mimi, my wife, and we try to incorporate different elements of instrumentation and rhythms from different parts of the world in order to convey that emotion, that feeling, the journey. That's what I love in music, and that's what I've been pursuing. As an engineer, as a producer, then I want to be able to facilitate a space where the artist that is performing, that I'm endeavoring to support, can feel connected, feel grounded and safe, so that they can bring out the emotion that was the inspiration for what they've written, to accomplish the same goal, to help enrich people's lives by telling those stories. Because I think that's at the heart of most cultures, the stories we tell. So natural light is important when we're focused on an organic experience, and usually you don't have recording studios with natural light in them, because glass is terrible for sound. And so our solution to that is these panels where there's diffusion on one side and there's absorption on the other. We put them perpendicular so we can see out the window, get some light in. That's helpful from a filming perspective, if that comes up. But then we can also use these to tune the sound of the room. If we're doing chamber orchestra, we want more ambience in the sound, then we'll put diffusion up. If we're doing some drums where we want a much tighter sound, then we'll put the absorption up. Or maybe we'll use it in a combination between the different windows. So there's lots of possibilities just within this one space alone that enables us to get the sound that we want. We've put a lot of equipment in to be able to not only do everything we need to do from an audio perspective, but also from a video perspective. So the infrastructure in here allows us to route audio and video for recording and broadcast with some very heavy doors. And we're using that to be able to capture performances and broadcast performances, and that's one of the ways that we are bringing music to the community. Studio anywhere that has the perspective that we have from a video point of view. That it seems to me that there is no listening to new music, no discovering new music these days without there being video involved. And the idea that as I make my record as a musician and I get that finished, and then I start thinking about how to promote it, that I then go off and try and find ways to create video, didn't make sense from a workflow perspective, and didn't make sense from an economic perspective. If I'm some big name artist, then I'm going to have somebody with a camera following me around the studio at the right times so that I can do my making of documentary. And I'm going to cut that together with other footage that I'm going to use to promote my new material. So why wouldn't we do that? When you look at the details technically, it's actually much easier to get that video with the right infrastructure to make some of the more challenging elements of it work far more efficiently if we build it into our workflow and we do it as we're making the record. And we've designed the environment where it's easy to put up a camera without it being in anybody's way. There's actually little need for there to be many more people around the musician that makes it difficult for the performance to happen. But we can still capture the video so that it can still help bring that music out to the community that is destined for in such a way that, you know, the emotion is present, and therefore the impact that it could have on that community can come about more easily. So one of the things we did is put in these tiles in the ceiling, the cloud we refer to it as. And the objective is to make sure we're controlling the sound in the room so it's balanced wherever you are. And so each of these tiles is a combination of absorption and diffusion, and 50% absorption and diffusion. And they're all strategically lined up in an alternating pattern so that we're as close as possible managing the sound in the room. The end result is you have lots of flexibility where you put an instrument in the room and it's going to sound great. just having a violin, solo violin playing in here, and the musicians have commented that how much easier it is to get their instrument to project. Just naturally hearing the decay of a cymbal and how long it goes on for is just a wonderful thing, and that's in large part because of the way we've treated the ceiling. So each one of these tiles is actually independently suspended with these spaces then put in between so that they all line up. And you can watch, if you, piano might be in the way, but if you get a shot from here, or perhaps this way because there's less in the way, you can see how the cut in the floor lines up with the corner of the wall that lines up with the line of the tiles. So everything in the room is symmetrical, and that helps produce a more effective stereo image and makes the sound as much as possible more predictable in the room, makes it easier to make great sounding records. We want to make great music, and we want to share that music with whomever is interested in receiving that music. We want to do whatever we can to help artists get their message out, to get their story out. And we've endeavored to put together a community of people that are passionate about that. And that involves audio, that involves video, and it involves support, emotional support, technical support, business support, to figure out how to get it out there. I think the music industry has transitioned from a place where it was very much the musician was a product of a label to a service industry where there's various organizations that have a valuable place and a valuable role to help get the artists what they need to get their content out there. And the more we do that from an emotionally intelligent place, from a place of integrity, then the greater impact those artists are going to have on their communities, and we're going to enrich our society as a result. So in our vocal booth here, we're able to control the color of the lights to create the right kind of environment for the singer. You know, lighting affects our emotions, and sometimes that can make all the difference in an artist being able to connect to what they're trying to convey. There's an interesting story with this mic. The circuitry is a reissue, a replica, if you will, of designs created by EMI used at Abbey Road back when there were no commercial audio recording products or companies making them. You know, they would be getting technology from Alltech Lansing and the like that would be creating technology for telephone systems, and they would adapt them, and they started creating their own circuits. And so this microphone has a preamp built into the microphone, and it is based on those designs. It's got a vacuum tube in, and it's got a lot of character as a result. And so you've got character in the microphone, you've got vintage circuits in the console, and you've got a room here with the same kind of approach to a natural sound. It doesn't sound too dead, it doesn't sound too live, there's no echo. It's a very natural sound, and it's an environment conducive for an artist to emote in whatever ways that they most connect with, that we can capture and put on a record. So the approach we used in the studio design was we wanted to have multiple different spaces to support an ensemble of musicians, not just a single musician at a time. We wanted to be able to have, from a traditional rock band setup as an example, drums, bass, guitars, keys, vocals, all going on at the same time. So we have multiple booths, we have a large tracking room. We can tune the sound of the tracking room based on the acoustic panels that cover the windows. So the amount of diffusion or absorption we put up. And as a result, the technology we chose was informed by that philosophy. We want to have musicians performing together where there's visibility between those musicians, where there's sufficient isolation when we need it, but also the ability to be able to just perform together in a room. And as a result, we can create some very organic kind of recordings where it's very natural sounding because of the acoustic space. So we needed a solution where we could have multiple channels of audio mixed as musicians are performing. And so that's how we use the analog console. It's an API console. It's a vintage console. Some of the EQs, the design originally comes from the 60s. And there's various other bits and pieces we have, vacuum tube-based components, microphones and compressors and things that are of similar vintage in terms of the design. And that's all from a philosophy of using perhaps a more traditional approach of recording musicians, but also blending it with the digital controls, the controller, the software, the use of audio over networking, broadcast capabilities, so that we're not just using a traditional approach to make records, we're also using cameras and lighting and broadcast equipment to be able to broadcast those performances. That again comes back to having a console with a lot of channels and the capabilities to be able to route the audio where we need it to for multiple purposes. That's why we use this approach.